So, of course, over the 3 days of CentreCourt, we have all of the top US and European business schools that themselves have set up campuses around the world, including in Southeast Asia, the likes of INSEAD that's in Singapore. A fascinating venture has been with MIT, working with one of Southeast Asia's largest banks to set up the Asia Business School. And so it's a great pleasure to welcome Matthew Osofisan. Matthew, thank you very much for joining us at CentreCourt.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Now, of course, you have entrepreneurship in the blood. I mean, you graduated from Northeastern in Boston. Your parents were both entrepreneurs, and you studied marketing and entrepreneurship. And that was the early stages of your career, right? You had some fascinating ventures. Tell us a little bit more about Jobble, and then Build, which was this fantastic venture for sort of experiential learning to help kids with their own entrepreneurial plans find their voices. So tell us about what you've been doing before business school.
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I went to Northeastern University for undergrad. I grew up in the area. I'm from Providence, Rhode Island, so not too far from home. I've always had entrepreneurship in my background. My father was an entrepreneur. My mother was a former teacher and then real estate agent as well. And when I went to Northeastern, I actually studied entrepreneurship and marketing. And that was my undergrad degree. And while at Northeastern, I actually was started my first business there, which was a clothing and retail company. And while in university there, we won the Best Business on Campus Award multiple times, raising $25,000 from the IDEA program there. And then I ran that business for up to about 5 years in Boston, growing and building that retail company with a business partner of mine. So we opened 3 stores in Boston in that time period. And that was really where I sort of sharpened my teeth in terms of my ability to build a business, right? The challenges that come with that. And let me tell you, retail is a very hard industry to break through with just $25,000. But just it turned out that a bit of luck and a bit of skill and a bit of perseverance, it got us to the point where we built a successful business. And so entrepreneurship has always really been a big part of my life. Around 2013, I sat down with my business partner and we discussed, hey, we want to continue in the retail space. Again, a really difficult space to be in, and it was always a passion of mine to enter. And I thought we were really successful in doing so, but there were other passions that really started to take hold in my life, and one being travel and one being tech. And so we decided to actually license out the brand, close down our stores, and actually part ways and look for new ventures. So that's where I actually entered into tech. And that was the same sort of time where I started entering into tech. I started traveling more. And you mentioned the Build program in Boston, which is an absolutely great program for mentorship, focused on helping underprivileged youth get a new perspective on their future through the lens of entrepreneurship. And so I actually became a mentor at the Build program from the time where I started my retail business, or in the middle of that retail business, all the way up until I left to go to Southeast Asia for my MBA. And so I worked in tech in Boston from 2013 to 2016, and working primarily in startups, companies that were 5 to 10. The biggest company I worked in was 45 people. And that's really where I put my sort of digital marketing chops to work, right? And really started figuring out those skills. Working in startup environments has always been something I was passionate about, and tech was always something I was passionate about. And most recently, before I went for my MBA, I co-founded a company called Jobble, which is a marketplace for temporary work, sort of like an Uber for event marketers, right? A simple way to hire event staff or people to help with your outbound and outdoor marketing. So that company I started with 2 of my good friends, both from Northeastern actually. One worked with me at a previous startup. And that company has been quite successful to date. We recently raised $11 million in July of last year. And that company is growing. And a huge shout out to the Jobble team for really pushing forward in these times with everything going on in the world. They're connecting businesses who are essential businesses that we rely on every day to workers who are looking for opportunities. And on our platform today on Jobble, we have over 2 million job listings. So it's really been that was one of my more proud accomplishments coming out of tech and startups. But at that same period of time,
there you are as this committed entrepreneur and enjoying great success. It's wonderful to hear how you've been able to build those businesses. Now, typically when you look at applicants to all of those business schools in Boston and Cambridge, there's many of them, including MIT Sloan just across the river. Lots of bankers, lots of consultants, growing number of tech software engineers that will think about the business skills that will bring them. Not that many entrepreneurs. In fact, perhaps many people see business school as the opportunity to transition. So, I mean, had you had business school on your mind? Where did the idea come from, and what then led you to the Asia School of Business?
Yeah, it's a good story. It's a funny story. So as I mentioned, when I started to work on Java, we sort of had the idea. At that time, I was traveling back and forth between the U.S. and Lagos in Nigeria. So I'm half Nigerian, half American. My father lives in Lagos. And when I had a bit of downtime as we were going through the development cycle of building out Java, I was doing a bit of traveling. And I remember the first time I went to Lagos. This was in the sort of late 2013, early 2014. When I went to Lagos for the first time, it really opened my perspective in terms of the opportunities that lie outside of the U.S. And that sort of seed was planted in me then. And as with my subsequent visits, I think that sort of started to grow. And so as we started to build out Java and we got to a sort of steady state where we were looking to scale, that itch to explore the international business, right, opportunities outside the States got a bit too strong. It had to be scratched. So at that time, I talked to my co-founders. We were in very good relationship, and said, "Hey guys, I think you guys can really handle this. I actually want to pursue looking for opportunities outside the U.S. This is the time for me to do so." And so at that time, I started to apply for jobs, reaching out and started networking across mostly Europe and Africa. At that time, Asia really felt a bit too far, right? Something I've always had on my radar. A big fan of Japanese culture, a big movie buff, so I like to watch movies from all over the world, specifically Asian movies, right? So always on my mind, but just that felt a bit too far. And so I applied for a job in Amsterdam that I got an offer from, as well as a job in Cape Town, South Africa. But I had a mentor from MIT say, "Hey, you're not really the MBA type, but there's this program that I've heard that's in the pipeline that you might be interested in." And I was like, "Well, tell me more about it." And the hook he gave me was, it's an unconventional MBA that's based in Kuala Lumpur in Southeast Asia. And at first time hearing it, I was like, "That's interesting. Sure. Like, what do I need to do to apply? I'm doing 5,000 other things. This is a really cool opportunity, and let me know what I need to do." So I ended up studying, doing my GMATs, sort of as a hobby, I guess, at that time. I needed to do it, right? Just because it's part of the application. So I ended up studying, taking my GMATs, putting the application in, and sort of forgetting about it a bit, right? A lot of other things on my mind. And then I remember getting an email from the school letting me know that I got into the program. And at that time, it was sort of a shock. I was like, very interesting. I'm glad I got into this program. And I remember my girlfriend, she's still my girlfriend, moved with me to Singapore. She walked in and I told her, "Hey, I got into the MBA program." She's like, "Oh, which one? MIT, Harvard, which one were you? I was like, "Oh, no, I got into MIT program. It's a new one, but it's based in Kuala Lumpur." And unfazed, she said, "Okay, cool." And kept on going. I was like, "Okay, does that mean you're coming with me? Does that mean I'm going?" And it was really one of those, a week that I won't forget, because in that week period, it went from, this is sort of an out there idea, but as I looked into what the program was, as I looked into the opportunity, and then as I felt it resonate more with what I wanted in life, it became super obvious that this was the best possible opportunity. I was incredibly lucky to be offered a position in the first class at ASB. And from there, that's when I sort of took that leap of faith.
So rather than the $12 taxi ride just across the river, you end up on the other side of the world in Southeast
Asia.
Yeah,
when you get to know me, I'm more of the opposite, right? Not the $12 taxi ride, but the long plane ride.
Now, of course, business schools and they welcome international students from all over the world. But with this trend towards then setting up the campuses, Southeast Asia as a tremendous hub and gateway to the rest of Asia. So briefly tell us a little bit about ASB and how that sort of mix of MIT Sloan and I guess the corporate backing that it has too.
Yeah, man, this program, I have to imagine there's nothing else like it in terms of what's available for MBAs. I mean, when the program, for those who are looking into it, or just to let me tell you about it, right? It's highly based in action, right? Action-based learning, where we have modules, and it was crazy times, right? So we have modules where we would take a single course in 1 week, right? One of the most distinguished MIT professors, Sloan professors, would fly over for a period of time, and they would teach us what would be 16 or 18 sessions in a single week. And that would be, say, statistics and probability for 1 week with Arnold Burnett, right? And the following week, we'd have corporate finance. We have corporate finance 1, and then 2 weeks we have corporate finance 2, right? And so it was really incredibly immersive, just to start, right? Those weeks were really, really difficult at times because you had to challenge yourself to push through. But in terms of what I was looking for, in terms of exposure to a lot of new mental models, a lot of new tools, this was really perfect. And for me and my learning style, I actually really want to, I'm very, I guess, energetic, right? When I'm thinking about something, I don't stop thinking about it. And so the module-based learning really allowed me to absorb as much as I could in the shortest period of time. And I thought that was really quite a good fit. But for me, the piece that really attracted me and what I think I drive the most value from was action learning. And so 25% of the curriculum, 25% of your time, you're actually out in the field, in the real world, in whichever country across Southeast Asia, right? Multiple countries at times, working for real companies trying to solve real challenges that they're facing, right? So aside from the case-based learning that we had in the classroom, which put us with examples that we could, so secondary examples that we could reference, we would then, next 2 weeks, we would be on trek, right? Where we would be at a company. And so for me, I did 2 action learning projects in Bangkok, working in Thailand. And I can't overemphasize the amount of learning that comes from immersion in that sense. Especially for me as an American, my culture and my learning styles are very different, right? And when I come to some place like Southeast Asia or going to a Thai office, I have to listen instead of speak, right? And as me as an American at times, I think I'm very direct, and I think things should be very simple, and we should be able to go through things quickly. But at times, that's not how we should be approaching solving a problem or working with different people from different cultures. And for me, that action learning experience allowed me to build empathy that I wasn't able to build otherwise. Understand cultural awareness that I wouldn't have been able to build otherwise. And those on top of the actual challenges of solving real world problems for these companies, it really stretched me. It made me confront the things I was really bad at, or things I needed to build or grow, or parts of me I needed to grow. And so highlights from that program would be not only the fact that we had some of the most distinguished, amazing professors come in for a week and just impart us with knowledge that they've had for decades, which was tough at times where you had to power through, and at the end of the week you felt so accomplished. And then there were action learning projects where you were confronted with entirely new problems, right? And a lot of those weren't just the numbers or crunching the numbers or writing the reports, right? It was really the cultural aspect, right? And that's what I wanted out of this program, was to have to confront my own, say, cultural biases or cultural, the nuances I bring from myself and my own culture to understand nuances from other cultures. And so for me, the ASB absolutely did that.
With the mindset of an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs solve problems, right? And the solutions that they come up with. As you compare, an intensive week looking at statistics and probability, or those finance courses, to then have that action learning, from your perspective, it was essential to be able to bring the theory and then apply it into a real life situation. Yeah.
So that's sort of the theme in terms of what attracts me in terms of a learning environment. So Northeastern University, I chose to go to Northeastern University because it's a 5-year university with a co-op program. Very similar to action learning, almost a very similar model, where in my undergrad, I was in class for 6 months, and then I would be working for a company for 6 months. And so when I was 19, I worked for GE in Chicago. I bought a beat-up car in Boston and drove to Chicago at 19 to work for 6 months. And that exposed me to more of the sort of standard American corporate culture, huge company. I remember that didn't fit for me, right? And so at 19, I discovered that through working. And I excelled at my job, but I learned that. And so I always valued that experiential learning. And so when I heard that ASB had a similar curriculum, but also put you in a different context, right? Entirely different context than what I've ever been put in before, which is new countries, new problems, new people. That to me was the challenge I couldn't turn away from. And so those weeks where we learned, statistics, probability, finance, even things like ethics, right? When you go to that next time you go to that company, because you go multiple times in the semester, the next time you go to the company, you have a different lens and different tools to apply to that problem. And so for me as an entrepreneur, it was just sort of filling my bag of tools every time. Some with more tangible things that I could use, like modeling, right? All the types of modeling, financial modeling, regression modeling, statistics, analytics, with the empathy and emotional side, right? That challenged me to think about how I approach that problem. And I would come back from that action learning project and I would be sitting in class. Maybe I couldn't pay attention because I was thinking about, could I have approached that conversation with this new person I met as a financial controller at a Thai company? I just need to get some information, but that conversation didn't go the way I thought it should have gone. What can I do, right? And so you sort of get this ebb and flow of taking information from both sides and processing it as you go through these modules and action learning. And for me, I thought it was an incredible challenge, but to me, at the end, I'm a totally different person in the way I approach problems.
So this sense of adventure, you're ready to drive to Chicago in a beaten up old car, or buy that one-way ticket to Malaysia, and credit to your partner for also taking that journey with you. Perhaps, as CentreCourt is all about meeting the schools, finding out more about them. So perhaps what would be one piece of advice that you'd have for individuals, either to look beyond rankings? You obviously had the assurance of those fantastic Sloan professors, but as you reflect on the adventure you've taken, what would your advice be?
I think, so me, that's a fantastic question, right? When I was looking at MBA programs, I know everyone has a different approach, right? They have different, looking for different things, right? For me, my advice I would give to somebody thinking about an MBA generally, and then even ASB, is it always has to fit what you want to do later and also who you want to become, right? And so a lot of times if there's more of a traditional MBA that has a very traditional path that's more comfortable for you, or for somebody looking at the type of program, that probably is a good fit, right? But if you're looking for a program that perhaps is challenging you in a way that you've never been challenged before. And this is definitely going to be something outside of the academic sphere, in the sense that it's not just about hitting the books and reading the cases and doing the reports. It's about the people and the culture and the context that you'll be put in, right? That to me is the absolute differentiation between, say, an ASB and a more traditional MBA program, right? The way I approach it is to each their own, and you have to really reflect on what you want to get out of a program, what you want to be challenged with, and what you intend to look like, right? Your skill set, your experiences after that program, right? A lot of times they say, like, you're looking for an MBA because you're not sure exactly what you're looking to do after, right? You want to just get away from maybe what you're doing now and be exposed to find that. That's almost like the entrepreneurial spirit, right? Of discovery, putting yourself in new spaces. I think that can happen in any MBA program, but ASB is a program that you will be faced with that constantly, right? And the end result is that you almost have too many experiences, right? That to distill down, and it gives you so much to think about. But in the end, it provides you with so many reference points to think about who you are and what you can do, right? And so I have colleagues in the program who had more of a traditional finance background. But what they came to ASB for was, I want to say finance background in the sense that they were working for a bank and they were thinking more traditional MBA, but they chose ASB. And what they came here for was saying, hey, I want to work internationally. But what they ended up leaving was they want to be more eco-focused, right? And think when they started to travel and see, the rice fields in Bali and how people are using renewable energies and renewable resources there, that changed the way they thought about finance. And like, well, it doesn't be from a big bank. It could be from the UNDP. And I can work for UNDP now and go to different countries and help them figure out the finance side, because a lot of farmers and small co-ops don't know that, right? And so if you took a traditional MBA, you might not be exposed to that type of environment, right? And so those are the type of things that a program like ASB exposes you to. And so my advice would be, if you're looking for something like an unconventional MBA, if you're looking to travel, right? And don't underscore the fact that Southeast Asia is an incredibly beautiful place. I don't regret taking that one-way ticket to Southeast Asia, because the travel here is spectacular. The cultures here are spectacular. But if you are looking for something to challenge yourself, to expose yourself to new cultures, new people, new environments, while also taking the same rigor, if not at times harder than what I can imagine. I've talked to my friends at Sloan. They're like, you took that course in 1 week. That's crazy. Even harder at times, right? This might be the program for you, and I would say jump in, right? Because there's no way that you'll be able to, I would say, quote unquote, survive or thrive in this type of environment with dynamic context if you don't have that attitude of jumping in and facing challenges. So if you're thinking like, hey, I'm looking for something a bit different, I want to jump in, I want to mix the academic side with cultural nuances and learning from different cultures, ASB is a good fit for sure.
Thank you for sharing a little bit of your adventure and experience with all of us at CentreCourt, at the schools on the admissions and careers panel. I'm sure they'll be now handling a lot of questions based on the enthusiasm and the insights that you've shared. So thank you for joining us, Matthew, from Singapore. Good luck with Grab, your latest venture, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Great. You as well. Thank you, Matt.